Today I'm going to be answering an email that I received from a fan. Now you all know that I never do this, but I'm making an exception because I've heard this question time and time again, so I thought it needed to be addressed. So while this video is mostly addressed to a specific person, I'm sure all of you will find this information relevant to your situation as well. Now this person has asked to remain anonymous, so we'll just call him Gerald. Now remember that my coaching services are always strictly confidential. Now Gerald is aware this is happening and he's comfortable sharing his story, so let's get into it. Hi Brad. I'm in a bit of a unique situation with my ex and I need your help. We broke up about 3 weeks ago. I found the X factor right away, so I've been following it from day one. I have one problem though. I can't go no contact. I have 2 kids with my ex. We live together and I just can't bring myself to move out. On top of that, we work at the Honda dealership together. We're in different departments, but we share rides to work sometimes, and I can't just ignore her. Can I? We're still sleeping together and sometimes it feels like we're still together, but then she'll say something that reminds me that it's over for her at least. Can I still get her back even though I can't go no contact? Please write me back. I'm dying here. Thanks, Gerald. Well, thanks for reaching out, Gerald. Now this is clearly a very difficult situation, but really not an uncommon one. These kinds of challenges can actually be a good thing if you do want your ex back. While they're going to make this process more difficult, they also show you how strong your relationship was prior to the breakup. You were able to really enmesh your lives, and that closeness will eventually be an asset when it comes to getting back together. But for now, you both need as much space as possible. While you may think that you can't go no contact, the truth is that you actually can. Despite all these points of contact and connection that you have, it is still possible to employ no contact with your ex, or at least something that I call modified no contact. Modified no contact is essentially no contact, but with a few exceptions. Obviously, since you have kids and you work together, you shouldn't just pretend that your ex doesn't exist. That's going to create huge problems in your lives, and it's going to tank any chances you have of getting her back, or even having a friendly relationship with her. So you'll have to modify how you use no contact. Now this will involve creating rules for yourself about when and how you talk to your ex so that you can minimize contact as much as possible without torpedoing the relationship. Now while I still recommend full no contact for most situations, modifying it will have some advantages that I'll talk about as well here in this video. Modified no contact is going to be the solution for most people who say that they can't do no contact. But there are a few exceptions that I'll talk about again here in a few seconds. Now I actually do have a full video on modified no contact that you can check out by clicking on the pop-up in the corner here or the link in the description below if you want to watch that next. So for now, let's get into it, Gerald. Let's break down these barriers to no contact one by one and how you can overcome them or modify your approach to deal with them. So living with your ex is obviously going to be tough. You share the same space, and you said you're sleeping together and it feels like you haven't broken up at all. And obviously, this can be a real mind for both of you. Above all else, my first piece of advice is to move out as soon as possible. Now, I know you don't want to hear this. You probably see this as the final nail in the coffin for the relationship. But the truth is that moving out is actually the right move for you now for a couple of reasons. Number one, the more time you spend living with your ex as exes, the harder it's going to be to get her back. Now, I want you to think about how you and your ex perceive one another and how you treat each other as well. Obviously, she now sees you as her ex ever since you two broke up, but there's a long history of her seeing you as her loving partner, her friend, and the person that she loves. And this is a huge conflict for her. It's almost like there are 2 versions of you living in her head. And the longer that you two are exes, the more that scale tips towards her seeing you as an ex rather than as her partner. And the more time you spend together, the faster this happens. So you're literally creating new memories of each other as exes. So the quicker you can get away from her, the better. She'll still think of you, of course, but since you're no longer in her eye line, you'll minimize the damage you're doing to the relationship. She'll have the space to remember the good times rather than thinking about her annoying ex who she has to share a bed with. Now, secondly, you're asking for more conflict. A breakup is extremely stressful for both parties. You're losing the person you love, giving up a very important relationship, and reshaping your life and your sense of self. And if you two are doing this in the same house, you're bound to butt heads. And since nerves are raw, you run the risk of using one another, as emotional punching bags. And if you continue to fight with one another, chances are one or both of you is going to say something horrible, something you can't take back that will make it impossible for you ever to be together again. Now, I don't want to get into specifics here, but as a breakup coach, I know people will say some pretty nasty things to their exes because they're hurt and scared, and you don't want to end up in that position. Now, number 3 is that you're going to create resentment for both of you. I'm sure you still look at your ex and see the person that you fell in love with. And that's what makes this all so painful. But eventually, if you don't move out or get back together, you're going to look at her and see the person who refuses to love you back. And when that happens, you're going to dread the sight of her. And this resentment will be yet another obstacle to actually reuniting with your ex. And of course, any resentment that you feel, she's going to feel double, as she was the person who ended the relationship, and now she has to keep seeing you around. And since you want her back, and she probably knows it, she probably feels like you don't respect her wishes since you haven't left yet. It's a mess, right? So all that's to say, get the hell out of there as soon as you can. Go to a friend's house, go to a hotel, do what you have to get some space from one another. And start making plans for something more long-term as well. You won't believe the sense of relief that you'll both feel when you finally have this kind of distance. I know it's expensive and it's difficult, but it will be worth it. If you really can't physically move out for whatever reason, at least find another room to sleep in, even if that means on the couch. And for the love of God, please stop having sex with her. That's one thing that's really non-negotiable if you want her back. Again, I've done a whole video on that in the past, and I will link it in the description below and in the little pop-up here. But suffice to say that sleeping with your ex this soon after breaking up is extremely messy and will often hurt your chances in a very big way. Now, since you're clearly worried about what moving out means for your relationship, you should be very careful about how you actually handle this situation. So don't make it a huge thing. Remember, it's not necessarily forever. You're just giving both of you space so that you can get some normalcy back into your lives. You'll obviously, have to break the news to your kids. Make sure that they know you're not upset with them and that you're still going to see them all the time. And when you do move out, don't drag it out. Aim for quick and painless. Make arrangements with your ex if you have to leave things behind or you have things that you share. And while you do, try not to come across as extremely sad, angry, or upset. Keep those conversations brief and really only cover vital business. Now, since you and your ex work together, you shouldn't try to adopt full no contact with her. Imagine, you two are in a meeting at work and she asks you a direct question and you just pretend she doesn't exist. Obviously, that's truly alarming behavior, and she's going to think that you're trying to send a message, that you hate her guts, or that you're having some kind of episode. And that's not even considering what your coworkers and your bosses would think. So avoid this awkward situation by modifying your no contact. Keep it professional. Have the conversations that you need to have, but just treat her as you would any other coworker. Don't be cold with her, but don't be particularly warm either. And don't give her any reason to be upset with how you handle work stuff. And at the same time, don't let her draw you into personal conversations, and especially not fights. Remember that work is not the place for conflict or for connection. Now, there's not much to be said here because it really is that simple, although I know it's not going to be easy. This is where creating strong boundaries with your ex is so important. You don't need to have a big discussion with her right away. Just lead by example. It's like the golden rule, right? Treat her the way you want her to treat you and hope that she gets the message without having to have another difficult conversation. So in this case, you want her to be professional and courteous and keep her distance. If she doesn't respond to this and becomes angry or aggressive, do your best to keep things calm until after work and then lay things out for her. Basically, she needs to know that you're taking some space now that the relationship is over. She may have trouble accepting this, but really, what can she expect from you? If she ended the relationship, then she knew that things were going to change. And pro tip, oftentimes this small change of status quo will make an ex completely rethink their desire to end the relationship. They may not have thought this all through and realize that now that you're separated, they won't have you around to rely on when things get tough. In any case, Gerald, you're going to need to take this space if you're going to have any chance of getting her back in the future. And also, if you can, stop sharing rides to work. This is a form of contact that you really don't need, and you can definitely find a way to avoid that. Now, let's move on and talk about another factor. I don't have to tell you that children can obviously make this situation much more difficult. Of course, children brought you and your ex together, and I'm sure they're also one of the biggest stressors that tore you apart. But for now, I want you to just put that all aside and focus on doing what's right for your kids. If you make that your priority, your ex is going to take notice and she'll step up as well. Don't use your kids to try to get access to your ex. Don't ask them questions about her and try to get information. And don't let the conflict you have with her bleed into how you interact with them. Now, these are all noble goals and things you're going to need to do, but let's talk about the nitty-gritty. How are you going to manage co-parenting while trying to keep as much distance from your ex as possible? Well, that's why moving out is so important. You also need to find a stable housing situation as soon as possible so that you're able to have your kids visit with you rather than having to spend time around her as well. For now, just do the best you can. And if seeing your kids means spending the afternoon with your ex, then you'll have to suspend no contact for that time. Again, keep your boundaries and don't get drawn into fights or discussions about the future. And while we're talking about unavoidable contact like this, let's go over how to best handle situations like this. Times when you have to see and talk to your ex during no contact. I mean, it's a high pressure situation, right? You're afraid of messing up and making things worse. But as I discussed earlier, there can also be some benefits to spending time with your ex. As long as you can remember these 3 simple tips and keep your cool, you might find that this contact, while not ideal, will help you out in the long run. So number 1 is to defy your ex's expectations. After a breakup, what do you think your ex is going to be expecting you to be feeling? Sad, heartbroken, lonely, angry? And I bet you are feeling all that and more. I know how much it sucks feeling like that, trust me, but you need to hide those feelings when you're around your ex. In fact, if you can go one better and actually pretend that you're feeling the exact opposite, happy, upbeat, and excited about the future, that by itself is going to cause some serious doubts in your ex's mind. Now, I won't bore you with the psychological reasons behind why doing the opposite to what your ex expects is effective, but it basically just forces her to second guess her decision to break up. And this in turn helps to change the way that she feels about you. So when you're around your ex, don't be a downer. Pretend to be happy, or at least pretend like you're already over her and moving on to exciting new things. Fake it till you make it. Number 2, make her worry that you're moving on. Now, this tip is a bit advanced, so only use it if you think you can pull it off. You have to be careful not to make it too obvious, or it will backfire on you. Basically, what you want to do is make some sort of comment when you're talking to your ex, or when you know that she can hear you, that hints at a date that you're going on, or someone special that you met recently. So for example, maybe your ex is standing within earshot when you're talking to another friend. You might say something like, sorry I can't hang out tonight, I'd love to, but I'm taking a friend out for dinner. The key is to avoid giving any more details or making it into a big deal. Just casually and subtly mention something like that in order to plant the idea into your ex's mind, and then let her spend the rest of the day wondering who the friend is and whether it's a date that you're going on. Basically, just let your ex's imagination create some jealousy and shift her overall perception of the breakup. Again, this is a potentially dangerous tactic that can get you into trouble if you're not careful. So make sure that you at least actually have plans to go to dinner that night, for example, so that you don't get caught trying to incite jealousy or, look like an idiot for making something up just because your ex could hear you. However, if you do get this right, it can be extremely powerful and really make your ex doubt whether she should have let you go at all. And the third key is to keep it fun. I've said this in many of my other videos and throughout my X Factor program, but you've got to avoid getting into any drama or negative conversations with your ex. Nothing kills attraction faster than another argument or another long drawn-out discussion over the state of your relationship and your future together. These are the natural types of discussions that new exes can easily fall into, but they're also the worst thing if you're trying to rebuild your ex's attraction for you. So this is especially important if you must see your ex regularly and can't avoid contact. Keep any conversations upbeat, lighthearted, and enjoyable for her. Don't get sucked into bickering, jealousy, drama, or anything that might further confirm her belief that you're better off apart. If you want to win someone back, you need to make yourself look like a fun, interesting partner that she'd enjoy spending time with. Now, I will admit, this tone can be hard to get right. You don't want to appear overly cheerful or she's going to see right through it. If you would like my help with this aspect of the breakup, or you have any other questions you need help with, please visit breakupbrad.com/coaching and see if I have any current spots available. Again, that's breakupbrad.com/coaching. And that page has all the details about working with me on an ongoing basis, as well as my current availability. Lastly, I want to quickly touch on how to handle one-off unavoidable encounters with your ex. Obviously, Gerald has his hands full as it is, but some of you watching might find this more relevant. So for instance, what if you're attending a mutual friend's wedding, or you go to the same gym, or you run into your ex at the supermarket? These are all things that you do need to be prepared for because they will happen when you least expect it. Now, this is a bit of a shameless plug here, but I would say that reading through my entire best-selling X Factor program will be the absolute best way to prepare yourself for any unexpected encounter with your ex, because it'll give you a clear plan for any and all situations, including these random encounters. In fact, there's an entire section about random encounters in the program. If you haven't already picked up a copy of the X Factor, you can do so right now, risk-free at breakupbrad.com. Start by going there, watch the free explainer video, sign up for a copy, and you'll get access to the entire program a minute or two after you complete your order. Now, shameless plug aside, if you are facing this kind of situation, or you're worried that you might run into your ex someday in the near future, my biggest piece of advice is to play it cool. When you run into your ex, no matter the reason or regardless of whether you were prepared for it or not, just be cool, calm, and collected. Don't make a big deal out of it. Don't let yourself get frazzled or emotional. And avoid anything other than casual, friendly, lighthearted chit-chat. Make sure you clearly convey to your ex how well you've been doing since the breakup, how much you've changed and improved and learned from it. And if you're feeling confident, try using the mystery building tactic that I mentioned earlier in this video to your advantage. Most important, though, is that you look good, act confident and positive, and give off the impression of somebody who's quickly moving on to bigger and better things. This will, once again, help to plant the seeds of doubt in your ex's mind and make them question whether it was a good idea to let someone so awesome slip out of their life. Now, I did want to take 1 second here to cover the other big reason that people say they can't go no contact after their breakup, and it's just that, I can't. Now, I've heard this again and again in my work as a breakup coach. That is, people who feel like going no contact with their ex just isn't an option because they can't bear the thought of going 1 day, much less 30 days, without speaking to their ex. No, it's too hard, it'll hurt too much. Well, if that's the scenario you're in, then I do have a message for you. You need to go no contact more than really anyone else watching this video. If you think you lack the strength to do this, then chances are you've been overly connected to your ex long before the breakup. You were codependent, clingy, and smothering. And this is exactly why you need no contact. You need to show your ex that you can exist without them, and if they don't realize this quickly, they're going to lose you forever. And of course, this is a two-way street. If your ex is the codependent one, then going no contact with them is going to be very painful for them. And this will create a lot of pressure on them to realize the mistake they've made and take you back. So the more difficult no contact feels for you, the more important it is that you start it today. That's just one thing that I wanted to clear up before we wrap up here. So thank you again, Gerald, for letting me use your email in this video. I really appreciate it. And I also wanted to share that after corresponding with me a little, Gerald has decided to sign up for my online coaching at breakupbrad.com/coaching. And I hope you will as well. Okay, guys, I could keep talking about this stuff forever, but I think I'll leave it there. If I've missed something, if you've got a question about your situation, you know what to do. Leave a comment below and I'll get back to you. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel as well. If you found this video even a little bit useful, your support means a ton. I really appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.